Host of Forged in Fire.
Kyle Mann.
I'm G. Warner Wallace.
Kira Davis.
It's Ben Adams.
Hey, this is Dave Baker.
Carrie Pomeroli.
This is Mike Reiner.
This is Ethan Nicole.
This is Leanne Morgan.
This is Graham Parker, the 5th GP, and this is why you should never.
How
I got suckered in.
I'm so embarrassed that I'm here.
You're wasting your time. You got better things to do.
Never listen.
Those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate, just two best buds interviewing people they have no business talking to. My name is Lucas Pinkert, I'm an actual Reverend, and here with me, as always, is the man, the mirth, the legend himself. It's Dan Flip Gibson.
I'm tired of you fat shaming me.
You know, it was just a once. And
no, you almost did.
When?
In the future.
In the future. I almost fat shamed Danley in the future.
There will come a day.
There will. Today on the show, we have the very funny, very talented, one of the legends of comedy, Jeff Allen. Jeff talks to us a little bit about his book, how he's become more grumpy with his old age. Surprise, surprise. But as June Colson says, it only makes him more charming and funny. He also talked to us about the crowd-funded sitcom that he's working on where he plays a disgruntled pastor who says, you can't come to church in those pants.
Which is something that you do not say.
And I don't.
Which is one of the reasons I started coming here. I remember asking you, can I come in my PJs? And you said,
yeah, why not?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you just can't play guitar in your PJs.
I didn't try it.
No, so
but that was the attitude I was looking for.
That's true. Jeff's on the show. We had a very funny interview with him. You'll also notice if you're watching this on YouTube, it's a little like the interview we did with him previously because anytime we interview Jeff Allen, it appears that there's a snowstorm, and we are battling that. So Danley is recording from location at Gibson Manor. And Jeff is literally recording from the parking lot in a McDonald's because his Wi-Fi was down, but he didn't want to miss the appointment. So we appreciate that. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like, subscribe, ding the little bell, all those things. And without any further ado, Jeffrey Allen. Well, hey, on our sweet, clean airwaves today, Big Flip is the man, the mirth, the legend. It is truly one of the favorite comedians in the United States. It is the fabulously talented and even more ruggedly handsome than the last time we had him on. It's Jeff
Way
Allen.
more handsome.
What's going on, Jeff? How are you, man?
Hey, not bad, man. Hey, I just want people to know I'm not actually driving. So if you see, like, oh, he's in a car, you know, it's like I only text when I drive. I don't do podcasts when I drive. So.
Well, we appreciate that. You know, recently we had June Colson on the show, and she's part of a writers group that you put together. And Moody Malavi was in here, and we know you've done some stuff with him as well in that writers group. And June was just encouraging us. She's like, you know, I know you guys had Jeff on a couple of years ago. She goes, listen, he's gotten a lot better. You should try it again and see see what's going on.
Yeah, you're solid enough to take a ratings hit.
Yeah.
So give it a shot.
So talk to us, man. Catch us up. What's been going on the last couple of years? The last time we talked, you were about to start a tour, and now you're back on the road. What's been going on?
Back out finally. Yeah, the COVID. That was the writers group. We were kind of rocking and rolling, and then COVID hit, and then we lost one to COVID. And it was just Tammy and I talked about it, and just didn't know if it was worth the risk to bring everybody in, and so I'd like to maybe this spring start it back up again and get those people over, and I really miss the fellowship of it.
Yeah.
And anyway, but I'm back out now, full bore. The 2.0 tour. People think it's a reboot of old material, but it's actually my GPA. I realize as a C student, I'm a proud middle dweller. You know, I'm a middle class guy. I'm happy to be in the middle class. I never aspired to be an elitist. And I realized, I said to somebody one day, that if you got a problem in your life, I guarantee you somewhere in the downline of that is a Harvard grad somewhere. They just feel the need to tell us how to live, and so anyway, my point is higher learning is not for everybody, but if Joe Biden makes college free for everybody, I'm going. Why wouldn't I?
Well, absolutely, as we all should.
Lucas, if Joe Biden makes college free for everyone, would you go back with me again?
Yes, we'll both go back, and we'll move back into the alcove in your mom's house.
Yeah, why would you?
Yeah,
why
absolutely.
Giving 300 million people access to free anything, what could possibly go wrong with that? Again,
Nothing.
I don't know. I'm a 2.0. I'm not a big thinker.
Well, I do want to talk real quick about your writing group because I think it's fantastic that you do that. That I mean, I'm sure you get some stuff out of it, but investing in the local comedians and bringing them out.
Yeah.
What does that look like when you say we'll do a writing session, or what does that practically look like? They come to your house, you guys meet somewhere.
Yeah, we sit around and Tammy makes dessert, which I think is really the reason.
That's what I want to know. What food is served?
Yeah, it's the desserts. But anyway, we ask, anybody working on anything, and then we kind of throw it out, and then people will give punchlines or help out, or hey, I see this going, and I've gotten a handful of things from the guys. It's just a completely different perspective on something, I mean, and again, that's the way it should be. You put 12 comics in a room, give them a point of view, and then all of a sudden you got 12 different ways of looking at the same thing, and so that's kind of what it was intended to be. And then it just kind of became a fellowship and just kind of, encouragement for people, what are you doing? And we pray for each other. And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's just,
That's awesome.
it was just kind of a nice get together. And again, COVID drove a wedge through our lives, and I think everything's going to be pre-COVID, post-COVID now.
Yeah.
It was before with me, it was drinking and drugs. I'd go, oh, I met you. Was I drinking? I apologize. Ahead of time, I'm apologizing. Or it was, no, I have, oh, good, I was sober. Well, it doesn't mean I wasn't insane, but at least I was coherent enough to I should remember it. But so COVID is just, everything is just pre or post COVID.
So
it is odd how that works. I do that too. Pre-COVID seems like a different world.
It was, and it still is. I mean, I don't know how much you go out to eat, but my gosh, going to a place that's third full, 30-minute wait,
Not very often.
They can't get help, and it's the strangest thing. You walk in, I went into a Buffalo Wild Wings the other day, and 50 people in there, and they're going, wow, we got about a 20-minute wait for, and I go, there's nobody here. And they go, yeah, well, nobody working either, so it's a strange, and all since COVID, all of it, and you think of the supply chains, and now we have chickens which won't lay eggs. So last night,
they're in protest.
Tucker does this whole thing on there's no chickens are not laying eggs, and they think it's the Purina food that they've been feeding them is anyway. It's a thing.
Really?
Because I told Tammy, and these little freeloaders out there, they're eating for free. They're not giving us anything, So I don't know. Again, it's like, your brain, if you if I allow myself to sit around, and I do, it runs wild with all kinds of conspiracy things.
Well, I'm very interested in the chicken conspiracy because my chickens are also not laying eggs. And we also use the Purina Lay-In feed.
Really?
Yeah, I might have to.
Wow. Well, you got to watch last night's Tucker. He had a guy on the urban
cowboy,
urban chicken guy or something. I don't know. Anyway,
we need to have him on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
if he's on Tucker, he's good enough for us.
Well, that's right. Well, I've never been on. I'd like to go on Tucker's show. I don't know what
we'll help Lenny get you on Tucker's show.
So chickens conspiracy, Purina.
Yeah, so there's a Purina conspiracy involving the chickens, huh?
I'm going to the prayer breakfast tomorrow, but we were going to go. There's a local farmer out here who produces chicken feed, and some people online here. We live in a small town, so there's this Facebook group that Tammy follows, and some of the chicken people here have gone to this guy, got different feed, and their chickens are laying eggs now. So and this guy said the same thing last night. He has 100 plus chickens or something, and he was getting 2 eggs a week from 100 chickens.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then now he said, I wouldn't change my feed. Now they're producing again. So
weird.
I don't know. And Purina, it's funny. Tucker goes, we reached out to Purina, and they, of course, denied it had anything to do with their food. And he goes, oh, okay. corporate PR hack.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great.
Well, how many chickens do you have right now?
We don't have many. We only have 3 hens now, and we had 2 dozen, but we had my son's husky ate 7. And it's hard to
get there.
And it's funny. We got these boxers, and we've trained them to stay away from the chickens. And I caught Brinkley, our female, the other day. She had one in her mouth, and I go, Brinkley, and she goes, spits it, takes off running. just playing. I think in the cartoon, what was it? The chicken hawk or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Foghorn
Leghorn. Yeah.
Foghorn Leghorn. Get him out.
Yeah.
He'd spit them out. So.
All right, chickens.
Yeah. So you've talked
about a stupid transition.
We talked about the writers
Yeah.
group.
Who knows?
Yeah, so we talked about the writers group a little bit. I've got one last question kind of concerning it, and it has to do with our experience. So we've had several comics who have come in person and who have done shows here at our church. We've gotten to write with several comedians now, and whether it's they're punching up our material or we're given ideas and perspective, our experience has been that comedians don't laugh at other comedians' materials. They're like, as soon as we start, talking about the writing process or the things that we're writing about, like all of the laughter goes away. Now, if we're out, having dinner, it's like a laugh a minute. Everybody's having a good time. But as soon as we actually enter into like a creative session, it's almost like nothing becomes funny and the joke becomes a very serious topic of conversation. With your writers group, are you finding that's kind of the same thing? Like, do the jokes get laughs, or is it like does all the conversation concerning the joke turn very serious and then you just hope that the audience gets it?
Well, it's an interesting question because I never thought of it. I think when you technically start thinking about the process, it loses. I get asked occasionally, what my process is, and if for me something happens, I did. I think it was Foxworthy's podcast, and I was talking to him, and he said we're very similar in how we approach comedy. And he said years and years and years ago, something happened in his house, and he drove to a club, and he talked about it on stage, and people laughed. And on the way home, he thought, gee, I wonder if it happened in my house, if it happens in enough people's homes so where they can relate to it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened. And I was in the middle of my drug and alcohol thing. And my day was pretty, I'd get home at 4 or 5 in the morning drunk. I'd sleep till noon or 1, get up, have a bite to eat. And I'd sit on the couch and watch TV till 4 or 5, go to the club. And anyway, about 3 days of that, I was complaining to the headliner. I was middling at the time at a club that I haven't been able to write much new stuff. And he said, well, I've only been observing you for 3 days. Because you don't really have much of a life to write about, because you get home and he says, why don't you go to the mall, walk around, maybe something will happen. You can talk about it, And, when you're sitting in a room with people and you're throwing out stuff, it becomes more of a technical exercise than a spontaneous thing. And comedy has to appear spontaneous, even though it's scripted. If I have a skill, it's the ability to take some pretty banal things and make them sound like they've happened to me, and come with a different perspective on it, or my point of view on it. So I think if you read my stuff, it doesn't read very funny. It sounds almost like you're just telling some truths about what's been going on, and it's interesting. Tammy gave me a punchline that I was able to build some stuff around. She came home from the doctor one day and I said, well, what'd he say? She said, well, if I was part of a wildebeest herd, the lions would be circling me. Yeah, I thought, gosh, that's funny. She goes, oh, I'm miserable, Jeff. She goes, I don't feel good. But it was like, what a great line. So I built an entire story around it where on that one punchline, I've probably gotten 3 or 4 or 5 good solid minutes around it on all this. It just triggered my brain to think of other things. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to do with the writers group, is just throw out, maybe this is a different way to look at it, and occasionally we would just kind of riff off of something like that, and just like it becomes like a dinner where you're laughing. But if you're on the joke and you're technically trying to, and again, everybody has their own rhythm, pacing. Mm-hmm. To me, the process is about eliminating syllables and words and just getting to the point, And again, I've always said this, and until I go to my grave, the longer the punchline, the longer the setup, the better the punchline better be.
Yeah.
If people are going to invest their attention into something, you better pay it off big. But if you're hitting them quick, then there's not a lot of investment in it, and you can get away with some maybe less than.
Some of my favorite comedians, I think if I'm following what you're saying, Chappelle, Norm Macdonald may go into a long diatribe of story, and then they'll hit you where you're not expecting it. Right. And that, how compared to, kind of your point of joke, and you have 10 jokes in a minute. How difficult is the long ones with a long setup and then a punchline, kind of like you're saying?
Well, I'll tell you what, here's one that I've been doing, and I won't be able to do it justice on this, but I talk about Tammy pauses, the new hook is Tammy pauses the TV. Every time she pauses the TV, she's been thinking. So anyway, I just go, what? Because it's always something, you need to get a physical. We're watching a Bruce Willis movie, and all of a sudden she pauses and goes, you need to get a physical. I mean, the heck is that got to do with what we're saying? I don't know. So anyway, this new one I put in, I love it. There's 2 of them I've been able to do. And one of them was this one where she pauses the TV. I say, what? She goes, I was thinking about America's Got Talent. And I do a whole story about that. And anyway, I said, it's over. Don't worry about it. They didn't take me. It's not the first audition that I've blown. And, she goes, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your crying. I got emotional during the America's Got Talent afterwards, talking to her. And they were filming a Facebook, a live call. I had her on my cell phone, and they were filming over my shoulder, and it just got emotional between Tammy and I, and it was an honest moment between a husband and wife, and anyway, so a month and a half later, we're watching TV. She paused the TV. They've already passed on my audition and everything, and she says, the career is fine. We're doing great. She says, I'm not talking about that. You're crying. I go, what about it? She says, you're doing that a lot lately. I say, I am. She goes, yeah, the grandkids come over. You get all emotional, and, they got grandkids in Montana. You get on the Alexa show. You got to leave to compose yourself. And I started thinking about it. And he says, you're right. I really have been. And I said, I think it's because I missed my own kids growing up. And I got these beautiful grandbabies, and I'm out on the road again all the time. I'm out there, and my peers, I said, back then I justified it because I was putting a roof over my kids' head and clothes on their backs, and I said, now I'm trying to justify this. I love what I do, but it's like I have a lot less days ahead of me than behind me, and my peers, Louis Anderson passed away, Bobby Saget. I told Tammy this. I said, that rocked me.
Yeah.
I travel alone, man. The thought of dying in a hotel room, and I said, the last call I make is every night to you, and I leave on the voicemail. I love you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me.
Mm.
So I said, what are you getting at? And Tammy looks at me and says, oh, I was just thinking you got low T. That's the long setup to the payoff. And
right.
Some nights I work up some nice tears, and I've seen men crying.
Yeah,
nodding, because you do. It's a reflective moment. It's certainly at 66, And the other one I do is long setup is love languages. Mm-hmm. My parents had their own love language, and I said, the last Christmas we had with my mom before she passed away, we knew it would be her last. And it was kind of special. Everybody was sitting there. We're watching the Christmas movies. My dad's in his chair. My mom's doing crochet. We're all just sitting around. And my dad starts serenading my mother in their special love language after 55 years of marriage. Which I love. I mean, first time when he heard it, I think he spit across the table. I was watching him. It's just, and then my mother got up, went to the kitchen, came back 15 minutes later with 2 hot dogs and a soda pop and put them in his lap. And I said, how cool is that?
That's amazing.
That's the dream. Night we're laying in bed, I said to Tammy, did you see that today? She goes, what? My mom, my dad, that whole thing. She goes, oh, I did. And I go, you think we'll ever get there, you and me, on that level of communication? She goes, shoot me if we do. Hairballs at me like that, it's over, buddy. I'm telling you, I almost chunked my dinner all over our children's heads.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about something that everyone can relate to, or if this is happening in our house, it's happening elsewhere.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that sound is one that probably everyone can relate to.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
I find myself making sounds like that.
And the older you get,
I've got a few ways to go.
Yeah, I think it has to do with reaching parenthood, right? Like Jeff, since we last talked to my wife and I had our first kiddo, and I have.
You, man.
Thank you. He's 5 months old, and I've already realized that like when I get out of a chair, that I'm starting to make all of the quote the dad noises. Like something, something happened as soon as he was born, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, everything becomes a beating.
That's great.
But we've told our audience about this. I guess it's been about a year ago. I brought my parents to your show. It was kind of right in between Mother's Day and Father's Day. It was their Mother's Day and Father's Day gift from me was to go to your show. My wife joined us, and my mom is a notoriously difficult laugh. Because she was the oldest. Danley knows she was the oldest of. Or sorry, I'm the oldest of 4. There were at any given time 15 or 20 kids in our house. We were
she's seen it all, and she's wiped all of its butts.
Right. And so, you mentioned in your, when you were talking about your specific type of comedy, that you have taken kind of the regular things that happen in life and made them interesting. One of the things that she noticed about it, and this I will tell you, you have ended up into the vaunted top 3 of my mother's favorite comedians. The first being,
oh my gosh,
yeah. So you are you've actually knocked down another legend. So I'll tell you, Leanne Morgan right now is her number 1. Jeff Allen is her number 2, and Jeff Allen dethroned Jerry Seinfeld in that in that number 2 spot. And one of the things that she commented on when we were talking about afterwards, because she was cracking up the entire time when we saw you at the Addison Improv, was she goes, you can tell that the material is that he knows it very well. She goes, but every time he was talking about something, it seemed like it was the very first time he had told that story. there's a quality to your comedy that makes it seem like you are coming up with all of this, as we're all sitting there watching. How do you what is that? How do you get that kind of it factor? And is that something that you just naturally have, or is that something that you can teach? Because I have to say, having seen it in person now, it's been absolutely incredible.
I'm just an old man. I used to be 3 or 4 routines ahead in my brain while my mouth was working. And now at my age, it's 3 or 4 words. So it really is kind of just coming up. I used to tell the kids,
hey, I got a good one.
Yeah, I stand on stage lately. It's happening more and more too. Because I'll go off on these tangents. And the other night it popped into my head. I do this thing about my father-in-law moving in with us. And all he wanted to do was watch Gunsmoke and eat ice cream. And
sounds like a great life.
Tammy took over his whole life, man. She just made him go to the gym. She made him walk. She made him eat vegetables. Guy was chewing broccoli like gravel one night. I go, what's the problem, Mike? He goes, if I don't eat the broccoli, I don't get the ice cream. 78. Come on, man. Give him some dignity. So anyway, I was talking one night, it just popped into my head. I just said, I was watching our president speak the other night, and then people kind of go, oh, like here comes and I said, no, I just, I paused it after a few minutes and I said to Tammy, is it me or does he look like he'd be a lot happier watching Gunsmoke and eating ice cream?
way more.
Way more.
I would too. I would too.
I got some booze and I said, oh, come on, all right, let's be honest with ourselves for once. I know we have people in my room that voted for the guy. So just ask yourself, if you owned a Starbucks, would you let Joe Biden run the register? You would. So shut up. I said, you wouldn't let him run the latte machine. I know you let him greet at the door because he's an affable guy. So anyway, he could greet your Starbucks customers with stories about how he used to walk the Colombian forest with Juan Valdez years ago as he picked the beans that you're going to be roasted today, and that's what you're going to be drinking today, handpicked.
That's how he got his name, Bean Pop.
Cup of Joe, corn pop. Yeah, but have a cup of Joe with Joe. So I get an email from some woman that in South Carolina, it was like 2 pages on how she felt I was just being mean. That's mean. Are you kidding me? So anyway, I started to write some stuff out and then I just deleted it. And I thought, you know what? It isn't even worth responding. She said he's trying to save the free world and you people need to leave him alone.
You got you peopled. Wow.
Yeah, you people.
Congratulations.
I guess.
Yeah. Well, I just don't understand. Well, if he's trying to save the free world, maybe he can get us out of Ukraine.
Well, speaking of getting out of Ukraine, and I think
a nice segue.
Yeah. What he means is getting. Go ahead.
And the prayers that would require that.
Right. Yeah.
The National Prayer Breakfast is coming up in DC this week on the first Thursday in February. Every year, 3,500 people attend. The event is hosted by members of Congress and organized by the Fellowship Foundation. So you are going this year. Is this your first time, or have you?
No, I was 20 years ago, maybe. I did. Oh, I'll tell you when I did. I did 2 years in a row. I did Clinton's last prayer breakfast and Bush's first.
Okay.
So that's 2000.
Yeah, 2000 and 2001. Yeah.
And then I went in one other time, but I didn't go to the actual prayer breakfast. I just performed. And this one, I'm going and supposed to go in tomorrow. We were talking about it off air, but my flight got canceled. So I got to figure something out to get there. I was supposed to perform tomorrow night for the banquet. They have a big banquet of people who came, and then the Thursday night after the breakfast is Thursday morning, and then we're gonna do it. We We got an invite to the Capitol tour. I want everybody to know we were invited, so I don't want to be on some geo fence by the FBI. We were invited, personally invited to go take a tour.
From now on, anyone that goes
no
to Capitol.
No fly list. I'm not going to wear my Chewbacca hat. I thought I might trigger some of the congressmen, the poor people, from Jason.
So you mentioned the
worst
Chewbacca
insurrection
hat.
in the history of insurrections. I love Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald lives in Brazil, and he said, "No, I've seen insurrections, and they usually involve junior military officials." I don't think Chewbacca guy was on anybody's military radar. So.
No, look, that guy was there to have a good time.
That's it, man. Smoke a bone and go take a picture in the Capitol.
That's right. That was my take.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Chewbacca hat. Are you a Star Wars?
No, not at all. I
Okay.
just saw I don't get it. The first time I went to, the first kind of fantasy sci-fi thing I went to, my kids were dying to see Lord of the Rings. So anyway, we got tickets early. I mean, we made a big deal out of it. Went to dinner, then we go to the movie, and then it ends. And I go, "Well, where's the ending?" My son goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "There's no ending. It's open-ended." What? He goes, "Oh, no, there's going to be 2 more.
There's a ton more.
No, this sucks. No, there has to be an ending." I go, "I don't watch movies that have no ending. They're going to get my money again." So I didn't watch. I said, "You guys can go. I'm not going. I'm not going to the other one." So anyway, maybe it was before COVID. I don't know, sometime. I don't know. Anyway, Tammy and I took 9 hours and watched all 3 of them on a Saturday or Sunday. I don't know. Called the kids. Yeah.
Liked it?
No. I can't remember the names. They're all weird. If they were Bob or Pete or Mike, I could, instead of Bilbo or I don't.
Aragorn, Gimli.
Yeah, those things. It was like we went through Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
My daughter-in-law read the books. So she said, "You have to watch these." So we started to watch them. And again, I couldn't follow the characters.
That's even more convoluted.
Yeah.
It is. So we went back after we watched season 1. We watched it again. It made a little more sense. And then we really got kind of into it. And then we watched it. It was funny when VidAngel came out with their platform before they got sued. You could edit, take out everything, violence, language, whatever. And they had Game of Thrones on their platform. I go,
It was like
"You
10
take
minutes
out
long.
language, violence, and nudity." I said, "You got the credits, maybe."
Winter's coming and it's here. The end.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you don't even get the preview. So it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think you haven't found the right sci-fi story.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I tried Star Wars years ago and I don't get it. I don't, And it's funny. I was at a corporate show in Columbus, Ohio years ago. And it was during Comic-Con, and the elevator was filled with guys, like my age, dressed. And I called my wife and I said, "Our boys would absolutely love to be here." They still dress up. They're in their 30s. Aaron's almost 40, and now he's into the log tossing. We bought him a kilt, and I don't know, something else. And anyway, he tosses logs now up in Montana. So,
Tossing logs is pretty
beautiful.
baller. I mean, I'm assuming they're big.
Yeah, it's kind of. I love my nerdy boys. I really do. I just don't get into it.
Well,
So,
that's probably why we get along so well, is because I also think our parents love their nerdy boys, though they might not be totally into it.
And our wives do too.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you need a kilt for the new thing you're doing? All right. Merry Christmas.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Send us the videos of our boy and his kilt,
whatever
I
this thing
guess.
is.
Yeah, whatever this is.
Yeah, whatever it is. I don't know. They still do game with what is it?
The Highland games.
Dungeon D&D. They still do.
Have you ever played a D&D?
No, I have no clue. I have no clue. It's the strangest. We used to hear them in the room when they were teenagers, making all these weird noises and things. So The funniest story, though, on all of that, the gaming and stuff, was when Aaron was in the Army. He was in Iraq, and we didn't hear from him for 2 or 3 days. You know, that's the one thing when I did the aircraft carrier,
USO stuff.
And the Indian Ocean. I was landing on, my son and I landed on an air carrier, and we were doing shows. And what they were saying was the difference between now and, say, you know, during Vietnam, when your kid was in theater or in, you know, overseas, you'd never, it'd be months, you know, before you could correspond or hear or talk, you know, whatever. And now, because of technology, you can do it daily. So Aaron was calling us just about every day from Iraq. You know, things are good. We're doing fine, you know. And then we didn't hear from her for 3 or 4 days. And Tammy was freaking out. So she calls my youngest son and said, "Hey, by the way, just curious, is Aaron gaming?" And he said, "Yeah, he's online every night." She says, "What's his screen name?" So she signs online and she types in, "Aaron, this is mommy, call me." And people from all over the world, "Hi, mommy. Hi, mommy. How you doing? Big soldier boy, call your mommy." You know? So we get a call like 5 minutes later. He goes, "Don't ever do that to me again." She goes, "Don't ever go 4 days without calling us again." You know, so
that's kind of like the reverse of Taken. You know that movie?
Yeah.
Oh,
the dad goes deep in. This is where the mom goes deep into a world that she has no concept.
She got no clue.
We had no idea. All she did was said, "What do I need to do?" And he says, "Well, you need to set up an account, blah, blah, blah." And we had Xbox because of the kid.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, we never used
She
it.
got him.
She got
to him.
That was really funny.
Tammy has exactly one game of Call of Duty under her belt, and it was just to tell Aaron to call
I'll tell you why we quit gaming. We got the original Mario Brothers.
Right.
The kids were they were in school, so 6 and 8, 6 and 9, I don't know. And we were living in Jersey. And I went to an AA meeting at 9 a.m, came back about 11:30, and she was still in her pajamas playing Mario Brothers. I went in and sat down, and we played every day, all day, every day until we finished every level. And I looked at Tammy and I said, "We'll never get anything done if we buy another one of these."
Yeah, that's correct. I think
as an addict, I kind of sensed I saw the behavior, and I go, "This is not good. It's not healthy for us."
It's good that you recognized it early on, because
early on. Yes.
So
yeah,
I've gotten married in the last. I got married in the early part of 2020. Right, like 30 minutes before the shelter in place edict.
Oh, right. Wow.
So the first couple of months of our marriage,
good timing too, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Well, at least you know when you got married. Oh yeah, it was during the pandemic.
Yeah. And it was one of those that, like, all right, well, if you're gonna take my wife and I and tell us we got to be shut up in the house, then we got some things to do. And so we watched a lot of like TV shows and things like that. Well, she wasn't really into gaming, and so we didn't really mess with that very much. Last year, I got sick for the first time since we'd been married on my own, and so I decided I was going to set the Xbox back up and pulled some things out. And I went to an old game, and it tells you how much time you've spent playing the game.
Was it Skyrim?
No, it wasn't. It was a Lord of the Rings game. And I had 199 hours invested into the game to get everything done. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh. And instead of like logging in or playing, I just went and pushed the power button. I was like, nope, I got to turn this off, because there's no way I'm going to ever come out of this rabbit hole once I get sucked down it. So
that's 5 40-hour weeks.
Yeah, it's insane. I earned my vacation days from the game. Like I
could have built a small ark.
Yeah, well, there's nothing on my wedges as far as a timer, but I was just watched Jordan Peterson's thing on marriage on Daily Wire, 3 hours on marriage. Really, really worth the investment. And I walked away from that with a pretty simple message. If I spent half the time on my marriage as I did on my wedge game, my marriage would be a lot better than it is. And it's a good marriage, but we have our issues. But, it is. It's I tell young fathers, I get that all the time. Well, you got any advice? I go, well, I'm not the guy to be giving advice, but I'll tell you this: there's only one thing you've been given finite, and that's time. You can earn all the money in the world, but you have so many hours in a day. And I said, what I realized, and I talked to my sons about this, because I have a lot of regret for all the traveling I did. And they said, no, he goes, when you were home, you spent time with us, So it was like they pay attention to when you're around and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if it's not with them, they want to know why. And then if it's consistently, then it's like, well, that means more to them than more to him than me, and it does weigh on kids. Tammy's father just passed away, and she's having a hard time with it because she had no relationship with him, really. And it's like you go against what you should feel for the loss and what you actually feel for the loss. And I went through that with my father. I didn't really, you read all the Facebook stuff about, my best friend, this hole in their soul that's left the earth. And I didn't experience that. And I felt guilty about it. And was I a terrible son or whatever? But it was just, we had no relationship. It wasn't like there was animosity. It was more apathy. It was just wasn't there. We play around a golf every now and then. We try to have conversations. But so time is it. Whatever time you spend, and I want to do that with the grandkids. I want someone to miss me when I'm gone, otherwise I got to go and hire some Jewish whalers. Don't you love that?
Yeah.
I used to love that.
There's a couple of cultures that do that.
Yeah.
I know. I think that's
so odd.
Cool. We were watching The Chosen or something. I don't know. Maybe it was The Chosen. Anyway, It was like, they got to get a whaler.
Yep. You're expecting like some guy with a spear to come out. No, it's a professional crier.
I'm like, oh, Jeff is gone.
Oh, what's it? Jeff. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. I got to look. Who are we whaling for today?
Check my notes.
And you're really bad is if a whaler goes, no, I can't do it. Just in principle, I can't pretend to miss this guy.
Well, I think that's an interesting point. I think you're right on the money that time is limited. The things that matter the most are family.
That's it, man.
I'm glad you're reminding even me to, I'm sitting at home, but I need to go spend more time with my wife and my kid.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, again, Tammy told me that because I said to her one day, I went to the golf course that came home, and she was upset. And I said, should I just be sitting around here watching you crochet? She said, that would be nice. And I go, really? Okay. So it helps if the other half of your team tells you what they want, and that's probably been the source of 50% of our biggest arguments is that I can't read her mind, and it frustrates me in that somewhere in the back of her head that if I could read her mind, it means I love her more. I don't know. Yeah. But I've tried to tell her 1,000 times, look, sweetheart, I'm a pretty simple animal. Just tell me. Tell me what you want. You want me to move something? You want me to clean up something? You want me to vacuum? You want me to mop? I'm pretty compliant.
You want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings? I will call ahead and get a assigned seat ahead of time.
But if you find the magic words that gets her to do that, will you forward that to the rest of us?
I'll tell you what, I've got a book coming out, but there's nothing in there that's going to help anybody.
Yeah, tell us about the book, man.
Oh, it's finally Tammy's. It's interesting. This is one of the in God's time things. I'm not a writer. And I used to tell Tammy that she'd go, you need to write a book. I'm the testimony. We went through a lot of stuff in our 30s, and that decade, really 30 to 40, and from AA to Christ capturing my heart, there was a lot of stuff that we went through. So anyway, she says, you need to write a book on that. And I started 10 years ago. And I'm not a writer. I told you, my process is something happens, I'll write 3 words and then I'll tell the story about it. I'm a better storyteller than I am writer. So I would write, and if she wanted an argument with me, if I was at the golf course for 2 days, she'd go, how much have you written on your book? And then we'd start an argument, So I don't want to write. I'm telling you, anyway, and on and off for 10 years. So last May, I'm at the NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters thing. They want a 10-minute set in front of Salem Broadcasting. So I'm backstage. I'm talking to some guy. I don't know who he is. And we're just cutting up and, having a great conversation about just a bunch of banal stuff. But anyway, having a good time. So I go up, I do my 10 minutes, and I leave, and I say goodbye. And then the next day, Lenny calls me and says, that guy you were talking to last night backstage is the COO of Salem, or CEO. I don't know what their titles are. Anyway, and he loved you. I said, really? I said, I did not know he was that big up the food chain. I might have been a little more nervous talking to him. I would have tried to suck up to him more. Anyway, they asked, does Jeff have a book? And anyway, they put us in touch with their publishing arm, and I sent them a couple chapters that I had written over the 10 years, and they very kindly said, obviously you're going to need someone to help you with this. And I said, thank you. That's all Tammy needed to hear, was some professional say that your husband is not qualified to write a book. So anyway, we found a guy to really help out. It's amazing to me. Years ago, I wanted to do a cartoon pilot. I had an idea for a cartoon. So I call a buddy of mine up in Massachusetts, one of the funniest guys I know. I fly him into Nashville. We spent 3 days trying to put together a pilot script for a cartoon. And at one point, I think 3:30 in the morning, Tammy comes out of the bedroom and goes, have you guys written anything? You sound like 2 kids at camp. It's like what we were talking about earlier. You're just sitting around cutting up, and we were cracking each other up and making notes. So anyway, after, 3 days, we got this mishmash or whatever, no script. And then as luck would have it, about a week later, I run into somebody at church or so. I don't know. Anyway, he's a guy that produces cartoons in Nashville here. And I went, whoa, yeah, we got a pilot. You got a pilot. So we go and we make a pitch. And Kenny and I both, Rogerson, we're just scatterbrained. We're all over the map. Anyway, the guy goes, after an hour, he goes, I have no idea what your show's about, but I like you 2 guys. Nice. If you can somehow get a script together, let us know. So I call a buddy of mine up who used to write for Dharma and Greg back in the 90s. Anyway, He's a writer, and he's a real writer. So anyway, I go, Fred, we got this stuff. We don't know how to do this. No lie. 48 hours later, we get a full script back. And I read the script. It's great. It's absolutely great. I'm laughing. I'm going, this is great. And I call Fred up and I go, Fred, you didn't have to write a whole new script. He goes, you guys wrote it. I just took your notes, And I said, really?
That's awesome.
That's a skill set that so anyway, that's kind of with the book. I sent him a bunch of tapes of talks that I've done. And I sent him my writings over the last 10 years, the bits and pieces and stuff. And all of a sudden, a couple of months go by and he sends the first manuscript, and I read it. It's really pretty good. It's kind of dark. It was hard. It was interesting going through to make changes and notes on some more historical things, dates and things. And I come upstairs, and Tammy would look at me. She goes, "You're working on the book again?" I go, "Yeah, it's hard to relive all that again. It's one thing to talk about it and then leave, and then not think about it for the next, but to steep yourself in it for a couple of weeks." Tammy read it and she had to put it down. She goes, "We really were not nice people, And but I said, that's the beauty of the book. There's a redemption. The last half of the book is the redemptive story of God pulling us in His direction, and then eventually just making that commitment, that last final leap of faith, and the restoring of us, and so it's really, I think it's a relevant story, especially for people in their 30s. I think millennials who've been bought bought into the materialism argument or the materialistic worldview, because it begins like with my redemption begins with Ecclesiastes, meaningless, all, and that summed up my 8 years, of looking for purpose and point to my life. And there is no purpose or point. That's the starting point that Solomon makes. But throughout the book of Ecclesiastes, he basically walks you through your life, seasons of life. Mm-hmm. And there's not a hopelessness. There's hope in God. But just, don't get wrapped up in the day-to-day stuff around here. Like the pastor used to say, go get a Dr. Pepper and a pint of Rocky Road and go watch your kid play Little League, man. He says, because the troubles are coming, tomorrow, next day, next week, next month, whatever. So today you don't have troubles. Go hug on those people you love. And it's a simple formula. It's hard because we complicate things.
Yeah, boy, do we ever. And if I'm correct, this pastor was Tommy Nelson, right? Who's actually in our backyard. Have you ever gotten the chance to talk to Tommy?
Oh, Tommy and I are good friends.
Okay.
I would say good friends. We're friends. When I'm in Dallas, he has a Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon Bible study at church with some friends and people, and he invited me, and I'll go in and sit with his friends, and it's really kind of a cool little laid back Bible study.
Yeah, so he's just about 10 minutes north of us, and several of the people that we know go to his church, and we've got some friends who are elders at that church, and they just rave about him. Yeah, he's a great guy. I just never knew, because I've heard you talk about that several times. I just never knew if you actually have gotten to meet him or talk to him. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
you're part of that Thursday Bible study.
This is really kind of freaky, man. He calls me and he says, Jeff Allen. I go, this is me. He goes, Tommy Nelson. I went, uh-oh. How did you get the number? How did you, he goes, I hear you talking about me out there, and I go, I am Mr. Nelson, but it's all good stuff.
That's pretty awesome.
I spoke at one of his men's gatherings, which was one of the highlights of my career. And he was so receptive to that, he brought me in to speak at a Sunday morning service, which I heard he doesn't do often.
No, he does not.
He wanted the women to hear what I had to say. So that was, and he said something that I'll never forget. He said to me in his office that if you ever want to get out of comedy and get into being a pastor, a minister, speaking, I would love to help facilitate that. I'd love to work with you, and that's quite an honor.
Well, hey, you did mention earlier your writer friend that compiled into an episode. Is this the rumored sitcom, the crowdfunded sitcom?
No, Abby Underwood, the young lady, reached out. Lenny calls me a while back. He says, I got this young woman reached out to him. She lives here in Nashville, wrote a sitcom pilot. And my first reaction to that is, oh, okay. Yeah, a lot of people. Anyway, he said it's called The Girl in the Church Pants. And I said, well, that's an intriguing title, And anyway, he said, no, I said, I've read the script. It's a good script. He said, and I like her. So anyway, that really, I read the script. I like the script. It gets church in a way that non-church people would still laugh at the situations and things. So she wrote the part of the senior pastor for me. She said, I had me in mind. She goes, I had Jeff in mind. I just wanted to reach out. That's why she reached out to Lenny, just to see if he's not on board, then we may have to adjust some of the script. But just a curmudgeon senior pastor who doesn't want to make changes, and she's 26 years old. They're talking about hiring her as a new youth pastor. I said to Tammy, our youth group, it consists of 45-year-olds. So maybe it's time for a change, and but I like the fact that one of the lines in there was something like, "You can't go to, those aren't church pants. You can't go to church in those," And she says, "I never knew there was such a thing as church pants." But I wear a suit and tie every Sunday. And, again, we've all been there, with, in old churches where the congregation never gets any younger, and, I think Tammy's calling me now.
But believe it or not,
anyway, they're trying to crowdfund it now. With she's got she's first of all, she's impressive. She knows what she wants. She's very gifted at the sitcom genre. She's she's an only child. She spent basically her entire life watching sitcoms. So it's like, this is what she wants. She told me she wants to be the female Norman Lear. This isn't it for her, So I told her I'm on board 100% with whatever little I can do, and she's got a couple of angel investors that are helping. And we've had some people interested that I don't want to mention their names, but if it gets funded, they'll be on board, and that'll really help move the project. And again, I believe in her, and I love the David Goliath story, that you can circumvent New York and LA and produce something that you want to produce. And there's 1,000 different platforms now that you can get it out on once it's produced. There's PureFlix, there's VidAngel. There's Sony has a faith division and stuff, and it's not just for faith people. It's but it's marketing it towards the family, and we want to stay away from the word faith just because it creates a lot of, well, if you don't have this in it, how does the gospel represent and all of that? I just want it to be a family. It just happens to take place with a pastor, his family, and his wife, but the situations are the same. They're human dynamics, and it's not about church, but it's about relationship, especially with a 60-some-year-old pastor and a 26-year-old youth pastor, and then the generational differences that come involved in that, and then the ability to stubbornly acquiesce to some things, and maybe I change her a little bit and she changes me a little bit.
It sounds very exciting.
It's a very relatable premise too, which I like. Yeah, as a pastor who has been forced to wear a suit, I do think
about church pants, huh?
I know about church pants.
And church hair, My
yeah.
daughter-in-law, to this day, she was looking to walk away anyway, but she walked away because she went to a church that told her hair wasn't long enough. She couldn't possibly be accepted by God because her hair wasn't long. And I said to her, I go, "Oh, please don't walk away from Jesus because some idiot, I'm saying the whole world, when I first went to AA, I was complaining about all the people in AA, and my sponsor sat me down. He said, "Oh, shut up." He goes, "These same people that are in AA are the same people you got thousands of drinks with over the years, and you didn't have a problem then, so shut up. It's not about personalities, it's about principles." So very wise.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, we really appreciate the time, man. We end all of our interviews with a quick segment that we call Controlled Rowdiness. These are just going to be some rapid fire questions. You can give as short or as long a response as you would like to. There are no right answers, but there are several wrong ones. So make sure not to step on any of those landmines and expect nothing from us by way of reply or response. And to get us started, I'm going to send it over to General Grease.
All right, Jeff. We're going to do top 3, bottom 3 sitcoms. Everybody Loves Raymond, Seinfeld, Roseanne, Cheers, Taxi, Last Man Standing.
Top 3, bottom 3.
Where would you rank them?
Wow. Well, Raymond was great. I used to, it's so funny. I lost a comedy competition to Ray Romano. I finished second. He finished first. And I told Tammy when he got the sitcom, I looked at her and I said, I'm not watching it. That's my sitcom. So, but Raymond was so well done. And Seinfeld, again, so well done. I loved Last Man Standing just because it had a different point of view.
Yeah.
And I don't watch. It's funny. We were talking about that the other day when this whole thing with Abby came up about, she goes, when's the last time we watched a sitcom? It's been years.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of got woke and, yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. Those three. Yeah.
Those are the top three. I do think it's funny you mentioned the last time how long has it been since you've seen a sitcom? We just got back into Everybody Loves Raymond, kind of introducing our son because my son's 13.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't have any interest really before. Not that I was a big sitcom watcher, but he's really attached to Last Man Standing. He really loves Everyone Loves Raymond. It's kind of one of those. It's what you said. It's a relationship, navigating the relationships. But we're not here to comment on your questions. We're going to continue on with our fast paced.
I've got 4 comics that I'm going to list for you, all 4 of which have passed away. Which one of them do you think their legacy is going to most vindicate them as a comedian? And here's what the question means is several of these guys were thought of as maybe ahead of their time or behind their time or being sort of comedians, comics. Which one of them do you think their legacy is going to vindicate them the most? So the 4 comics are Gary Shandling, Norm Macdonald, Louis Anderson, and Bob Saget. Which of those 4 do you think their legacy is going to be the one that vindicates them the most?
Norm Macdonald. I think he was the most retrospective near the end of his life. He left behind some pretty deep stuff about faith and so Norm.
Did you have an opportunity to perform with Norm at any point during your career?
No, never really met him. Saget, I worked with Bob. Yeah, I mean, I was like an MC at a club. People didn't realize he's pretty dirty.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm watching Full House and bring their kids out. He'd stand there going, no kids. Yeah. And Louis, I met in LA briefly. We had a bite to eat, mutual friends. We were sitting around at the Improv, and just a gentle soul. Really nice guy. And I never met Shandling. So,
next question. Have you ever seen a South Park?
Oh gosh, we watched like 5 seasons.
we both figured. We were talking about it ahead of time.
It's a guilty pleasure. We love.
There you go. That was exactly. We were talking about the 2 questions of do we say how what's your guilty pleasure show? Thinking it might be South Park.
So that is.
Yes. And The Simpsons. Funny, we wrote in this scene we're going to do for Abby for the crowdfunding. I brought up. I said, it'd be great if you walk in and I'm reading the King James Bible, and Abby quotes the King's English, and I look up, the King's English, and the secretary goes, "Is that King David?" And then I say, "No, that's King Lear." And I say, "How do you know Shakespeare? Have you read it?" And she said, "Well, Simpsons, episode 4, Homer to Bart, And then I said, "Well, we don't watch The Simpsons because they're trashy people." I had a cousin say she wouldn't let her kids watch them, and I said, "It's the best written show on TV." And she said, "Well, they're trashy people." And I said, "All the more reason to let your children watch. So when you won't let them play with certain friends, and because they're trashy, they have a reference point."
Yeah.
So it must be like The Simpsons.
Who's the greater Lenny? Lenny Sesselman or Lenny Kravitz?
Lenny Sisselman.
Good answer.
That's good.
If you were to host a book burning, what fantasy series would you burn first?
I'm not that familiar with it. I would burn
Harry
Star
Potter.
Wars, just because it's Disney.
Just Star Wars.
Okay, yeah, I can see why that makes sense. And so we'll wrap up here. Now, you've told us that you're a South Park. I do want to pull the curtain back and say that in a lot of the pastoral circles that I run in, most of the pastors, that is kind of the guilty pleasure show, is South Park, because it just does a wonderful job of cultural commentary. Now, one of the things that you've mentioned that you've done over time, you enjoy going to concerts, music, and that kind of stuff. What is of all the shows you've ever been to? What's your favorite concert that you've ever been to?
Blake Shelton.
Really?
Recently with Tammy, just because Tammy's such a huge fan of Blake Shelton, and just watching her, I got like, you could get hit by his spit. That's how close we were to the stage, and watching my wife just dance and sing, and yeah, so that was my favorite concert.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's a very thoughtful answer.
Yeah. Jeff, tell our audience where it is that they can find you if they want to follow you on social media or check out the 2.0 comedy tour. That when does that start up?
The JeffAllenComedy.com is the website. The schedule's up there. It gets changed every day when dates are added.
Well, we'll stay safe and good luck getting to the prayer
man.
breakfast.
Yeah. You're
Thanks,
very good, man.
yeah.
All right.
Thanks for your time, sir.
All right.
Thank you,
thanks,
guys,
Jeff.
man. Have a blessed day.
All right. Jeff freaking Allen.
Yep.
The guy is not just like a comedic legend, but it's so cool to see guys like him and Robert G. Lee, and the way that they are investing.
Which is better than Robert E. Lee. Let me tell you about that.
Yes.
It's distance. Go ahead.
Yep. So that's exactly what I was like. Oh, backpedal. So the comics that are sort of in this era where they've been legends for a while, Robert G. Lee out on the West Coast, Jeff has been doing it in Nashville on the East Coast for a long time. The way that they are getting these writing groups together and that they're passing down their craft, I think is a very, very cool thing. I really loved Jeff talking about the writing group and the chemistry and camaraderie that they had there. I'm also very interested on what kind of desserts Tammy serves. That's really what I'm in for. I want some snacks. So
I would go for the feedback, and you would go for the Fig Newtons.
For the Fig Newtons, yeah, that's exactly right. As long as they're free-range Fig Newtons.
Feedback and Fig Newtons.
Yeah, and maybe he can solve the chicken egg crisis while we're out there. We'll go and help them solve the chicken egg crisis while everyone else works on comedy. That will be like our area of usefulness. Maybe we want to thank
Purina.
Yeah, there you go.
Problem.
We want to thank Jeff for being on the show. Make sure that you check out his book that'll be coming out in the fall, as well as checking out the 2.0 comedy tour. Links for all of that stuff are going to be in
check out those leaks.
The show notes. You guys stay hard, keep jamming, and we'll see ya.